Well, hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Pacific Ocean Asia. Yes, we're back. I wanted to talk today. It's been a long time, several years, in fact, since Pacific Ocean Asia shut down its channel, and we are coming back. I wanted to talk today about a few things. I wanted to talk about the last presidential election in the United States, which I thought was very interesting. I want to talk about Facebook. I want to talk about how we have entered a while ago, not too long of a while ago, but within the recent, definitely decade, more intensified in the last few years, the level of hate that has risen and crept into our society continues to amaze me. Everybody has a right to vote for their political preference. But did you notice at the last election where it narrowed down to Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton, the hatred? Did you notice where it came from? It came from those that supported Hillary Clinton. It came from the left. It came from the liberals. Rush Limbaugh under attack. Conservatives under attack. People who put a lot of stock and faith in Christianity under attack. People who support the right to keep and bear arms under attack. People who support the right to freedom of speech under attack. But what was shocking to many people is when we finally woke up and realized the entertainers, the actors and actresses, the pop culture musicians, the rap musicians, and the American iconic ABC, NBC, CBS, the news institutions of our land, when we suddenly realized those were not your friend. The term fake news has become a buzzword today. Never did Pacific think that he would see something like this happen. I grew up thinking the people that report the evening news were doing just that, reporting the evening news. And the awareness crept in little by little that, guess what? They're spin doctoring things. They're telling us what they want you to hear, to believe. That people who have beliefs that oppose the left, for example, if you believe that marriage is between a man or a woman, and it doesn't allow for having same-sex partners, you will incur the wrath of the LGBT community. If you stand up and believe that abortion is murder, which it is, you will incur the wrath of the feminists. And the word feminist has become truly the F word in our day. The feminists have gone above and beyond championing the rights of equality, but instead are demanding dominance. Terms like manspreading, which has hit Sweden like a plague. You know, guy sits on the bus and he just gets comfortable in his seat, his legs spread open, and women are offended at that. Pacific had his own when he went into a sauna and was laying legs straight out, laying on a bench. Women do this too. There's another gentleman seated at the other end of the sauna, leaning back, his legs open. Nobody thinks about this. In walked a woman with the typical short hair. She had been there before with her significant female other, and she walks in and tertly says, "Oh, so this is what it means by manspreading." I didn't say a word. This woman had a history of walking in and dominating the room. Any man woke up, any man spoke about his job or anything to anybody else, she said, "This is not a locker room. This is a sauna. Please be quiet. I want my peace." And we said, "Excuse me, we have a right to free speech. Nobody's saying anything offensive in here. You don't have the..." And she starts screaming, "I want peace." I sat up and I very calmly said, "Yep, you're the epitome of peace, all right, ma'am. You got issues." Another gentleman said, "I have the right to talk. This is freedom of speech, and people talk in here all the time." Her own significant other was telling her, "Please stop, please stop, please stop." She wouldn't even listen to her lover. Feminism has become a baseball bat just for the simple fact that you are a male. We all know that feminists want men to be turned into little cowards. We all know that feminists want men to be submissive to them. But God forbid the man be the head of his own house. But if you think that this just stops there, the social engineers of society that people talk about, the Democrat, the liberal, they claim to be tolerant, open-minded. And you find that that is a farce the minute you stand up and say, "Thus saith the Lord." You find out that is a farce when you say, "I voted for Donald Trump." Wow. You have just vexed yourself, buddy. Why did people vote for Donald Trump? Simple, simple, simple reasons. No mystery about it. People were tired of illegals taking over our country. I've watched it happen for years. I have watched it happen right here where I live. They're 58%. Not only are they 58%, but they're not hiring the whites. They're not hiring the Asians. They're not hiring the blacks. You want to talk about a good old boys club? I watch Hispanic people in my locale get favoritism, talk only to their own kind, be nice and sweet to their own kind. That's a whole nother video. We'll leave that for that time. I have watched reverse racism in full swing. It has become open season on white males in America. Open season. To be sure, many white males have earned themselves a reputation of being rude. But at the same time, what is the biggest screaming yell against white males? That were racist, that were empire builders? Barack Obama. His own father wrote a book referring to whites as empire builders. I guess he didn't read about Asia. I guess he didn't read about the fact that there have been many cultures that dominated and took over another, and nobody says a word about that. Take this story about the Native Americans in the U.S. Do you know how many lies proliferate about that? That America stole the land, that America bludgeoned all the Native Americans, and nobody bothers to realize that most of the Native Americans died off from diseases just simply by the white man showing up here that brought bacteria and stuff from their respective countries that these people had no inoculations against and just died. Take the lie that America stole Mexico's land. No, we fought a war. We won the war, and the then sitting president surrendered, and America not only beat them, but gave the president $20 million and he disappeared. The media today is not about facts. The media today is about dogging you for standing on something called truth. Facebook, 300 million plus users, probably more at this point. I watched video after video. Facebook disabled my account. I've had it happen numerous times. Reason? It's vary. Sometimes none given. They reserve the right to not give a reason. And it finally dawned on me, is social media a good thing? For everybody that says yes, there's an equal number of people that say no. I saw video after video where people said why you should get off Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg was a Hillary Clinton supporter. Mark Zuckerberg's interesting. Whatever Mark Zuckerberg deems as offensive will shut you down, will get flagged, will get removed. Take, for instance, Mark Zuckerberg shutting down a Frenchman's Facebook account because he posted a painting of a nude woman. He sued and won and had the right to put art. I posted 3D art. And they would remove the photo saying this is a violation of their terms. I'd write an appeal and say this is art. We're sorry for removing the photo. It doesn't violate our community standards. And they reinstated it. This happened several times. But recently I've come to believe, and Facebook, actually there's videos on this right now, that Facebook was going to employ a group to get rid of fake news. Not to be outdone by Donald Trump, who called fake news a spade that it was. Now, the liberals want to get on the bandwagon and give us the illusion that they're shutting down fake news. Well, if you look at their fake news sites, PolitiFact, Fact Check, all this other stuff, who's in charge of that? Certainly not the right. There is a huge amount of Americans that actually believe that CNN is telling them the truth. Aside from the fact that that is laughable and false, it's disturbing to think that people have actually come to the point where we've become a very Orwellian society. George Orwell's 1984, George Orwell's Animal Farm. Both books are worthy of reading today in light of the current Democratic Party. The pigs, when the humans die of the farm in Animal Farm, in George Orwell's classic book, the pigs take over the farmhouse and say, we've got to do this. We're going to run things as normal. Because if we don't, they'll sell us all to take over the farm, blah, blah, blah. And the pigs quickly show leadership skills, put that in quotes, and dictate to the rest of the animals, you'll work. And they use the horse till the horse works himself literally into a glue factory. And the pigs are whining and dining themselves, which is the same thing that the modern day Democrats are doing. Whining and dining themselves, squealing with glee while they're sucking up Americans' tax dollars, giving themselves the best health care insurance in the world, while not giving the rest of us the same. Everybody knows that Barack Obama, when he said the Affordable Health Care Act, even Democrats, even medical establishments and people all across this land are saying Obamacare was a major failure. Not only did it not make healthcare affordable, it doubled and tripled the rates of a standard HMO. In fact, if you go to get a healthcare policy today, right now, chances are you'll pay a huge monthly, get no office visits, no preventatives, no meds, nothing. And then you have to pay a huge deductible before anything kicks in. In some cases, $7,000 to $10,000 a year per person will be paid out of pocket. And guess what you get for that? Nothing. Now, tell me from a Democrat way of thinking how that's an affordable healthcare act. Take $10,000 of your hard-earned money, $7,000 to $10,000, and throw it out and say, wow, I got a healthcare policy. No preventatives, no office visits. You are paying for nothing. And what kills me is there are Democrats today like Nancy Pelosi and Maxine Waters and a plethora of the goof troop in the liberal left in Washington that try to get us to believe what a sad day it was when Obama left office and Trump got in power. It's interesting that Trump and his administration wasted no time in attacking the fines levied at myself and the rest of you Americans for not having a healthcare policy. Very ironic. And they repealed those fines. That was necessary. It's interesting to notice that since Trump has been in office, that the stock market has gained huge gains, that the economy is robust, that under 8 years of Barack Obama, no job was created, nothing happened but a noose put around the American people's neck. Obama wanted to shut down Rush Limbaugh on talk radio. And the Democrats tried. They used to have Voice of America, and nobody listened to it. Ironically, Democrats have listened to Rush Limbaugh with the intent of attacking him, only to find out that they suddenly had their minds open and they said, wow, we can't refute what he's saying. But what do you do about the rest of America that still believes that the Clintons and the Obamas and the Nancy Pelosi's and the Maxine Waters of society and Oprah Winfrey and Mark Zuckerberg are good for humanity? Mark Zuckerberg makes billions of dollars on something that if all of the electrical systems in the world were to shut down and an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse, would be dropped on the world, Zuckerberg has virtually nothing but cyber fluff. And yet all of us took to Facebook. Churches and businesses and people all get on Facebook because, God forbid, we be left behind, left out of the loop. But make no mistake about it. It has been said that Zuckerberg has an affiliation with the CIA that has funneled money into him because they realized you have just created something that spies on every American that gets on board with us. They give their age, sex, location, their political, religious views, their shopping interests, their buying interests, their music interests. We have just found a way to quickly and rapidly put together a dossier on every person in Facebook. Pacific is a Christian, Pacific is a conservative, Pacific does this, Pacific buys this, Pacific goes here. And what's ironic is the feminists scream and yell, and they like to say, you don't know me. And feminists talk about, that guy looked at me, I feel unsafe. And yet they willingly get on Facebook and they post pictures of what they had for dinner last night. They show their $5,000 doggy hairdo. They put where they're going, who they're with, who they like. And their own privacy they have willingly compromised. I never thought I would see an age come where the very things that we become dependent on would become our own enemy. I saw video after video of gentlemen and ladies saying why I deleted my Facebook account, why I got off Facebook. My account was disabled. And all of them said the same thing. No reason was given. And the people in these videos weren't some raving lunatic. They were professional. They were kind people that just said, I don't even know what I was shut down for. When you have the fox guarding the hen house, this is what you're in for. Which, if you look at Facebook policies, it does not follow constitutional or judiciary law as it is written in the United States that you have a right to a trial, that you are innocent until proven guilty, that if you're thrown into a courtroom, that an attorney or a judge or somebody has to say the reason you're here and you're accused is because this. Then you must show forth evidence, but Facebook reserves the right to say, we don't have to give a reason, which in the long and short of it means that Mark Zuckerberg and his cronies can say, I don't like this guy's views, we're going to shut him down. No one can sue him. No one can come after him for discrimination of religious beliefs, political views, whatever. Only the Democrats would think of that, wouldn't they? But let's go on about Mr. Zuckerberg. He has in his policies that he doesn't want anything deemed offensive or supports terrorism or violence, and yet you look at Facebook and there are all kinds of people with views that are very destructive to America. Mark Zuckerberg condones and gets behind Hillary Clinton and was very bold about that when she supports mass murder in the name of abortion. The left continues to amaze me when they scream and yell for gun control, especially those that play and act and get paid huge dividends for being on a Hollywood screen that pumps out and promotes violence, violence, violence. You have to stop and shake your head and go, is this really happening, or did we just enter the twilight zone of both? The left, the liberal left, the feminist left, they are full of hate. They are full of censorship. They are not open-minded. They are not tolerant. Did you see the last State of the Union address given by Donald Trump? Did anybody watch Nancy Pelosi? Her mouth has some sort of deformity or problem through the whole speech. When a Democrat stood up to applaud our president, they pulled the Democrat down. If you actually believe the lie that Facebook, that Oprah Winfrey, that the Clintons, that Barack Obama, that the Democrat Party is your friend, you'd better guess again. A well-written book that I'm still picking my way through. This is about illegal immigration and how the left is using it to destroy our way of life. We live in a culture where everything's based on likes. We live in a culture that's obsessed with selfies. We live in a culture that's obsessed with superficial and vain. We live in a culture where we allow people like Madonna, Eminem, Oprah Winfrey, and many, many others, Whoopi Goldberg, to make political statements as if they have the right, as if they have political science degrees, as if they're really concerned about truth when all of them make exorbitant salaries. when a leading Democrat, Nancy Pelosi, says, let's get this health care thing passed so we can see what's in it. That ought to have woken up every American right there. Nancy Pelosi and the Clintons and Oprah Winfrey and all of them don't care about you. They have their piece of the pie, a more than adequate share, in fact, a disproportionately unfair, advantageous slice of pie, that if, as they used to get behind Barack Obama, who said share the wealth, why are they not doing it? Obama, upon leaving office, was seen on powerboats and yachts and running around with the who's who and spending exorbitant amounts of money, so much so that even other Democrats said this is disgusting. Social media and the media at large is controlled by the liberal left think tank. And though I used Facebook and I've used social media myself, I realize at the end of the day, it is not our friend. That we live in an era now where the left has a renewed vigor and interest in shutting down and censoring anybody that says anything that they get butthurt over, offends them. Pacific Ocean Asia was the target of an all-out attack, including death threats, threat letters, all kinds of crazy behavior by a gentleman by the name of Andrew Jesher that went by a fake ID, never showing his face. He's in the United States military, and somebody much smarter than me routed him out, found him, and wrote one of his officers and said, you need to know, and wrote the military that he's under and said, you need to know that this guy is doing this online activity. His account was finally pulled after several years. That you run the risk of getting those kind of people to do it again. And Google's extremely turtle slow pace in getting that problem solved was nothing short of ridiculous. Google owns YouTube. That people are bullied, that people are threatened, that people are made afraid. And we've seen this with conservatives, that they're less likely to be vocal in some settings because they don't want to be shunned. But I boldly tell my viewers, if you can't be accepted for who you are, even if your view is different than mine or anybody else's, why are you playing an act? The left has shown their hate over and over. Using bullying tactics, using shouting down tactics, using name-calling tactics is not professionalism. It is not the way to win a case argument. That if we don't allow for discourse to say, I disagree with Pacific Ocean Asia or Donald Trump because, and lay it out intellectually, and at least give something, or your listening audience or your reading audience, something to consider that they might not have thought of. Instead, we resort to emotionally driven logic. Madonna saying, I feel like blowing up the White House. She should have been arrested. And a plethora of less than manly Hollywood actors screaming and yelling about gun control, but not one of them standing up for the right to life of a human baby. That the left that condones the salvation of the planet and to stop global warming, that will stop construction over a mouse. Yes, this has happened. A spotted owl. But those same people have no problem with killing a human being and calling it choice. If the liberal left had their way, everybody would be driving a Prius or a Subaru and have a Starbucks coffee in one hand. Where we live in a society where the left has put animals and animal rights above those of people, that we have story after story of animal abuse that rallies these people together, that that's wrong. And I agree, animal abuse is wrong, but people abuse has been on the rise for a long time, that a man or a woman can't even cross a public street without nearly getting mowed down by an SUV. And for those claiming to save the environment with all their pro-Obama and everybody else's sticker on the back, we're saving the planet. I hate to break it to you, but no one can save the planet. No one. Yes, we need to be responsible. When we cut down forests, we need to manage that instead of clear cutting and stripping everything because of our rabid consumerism, and we are guilty. America has been a feed me first nation for a long time, that we are exporting less and less in the tangible goods market and instead importing or exporting feminism, rebellion, so much so that it has gone to the Philippines, that it has gone around the world, and we now have other cultures dyeing their hair blonde and getting breast implants and caking themselves with makeup, beautiful native women of their respective cultures, because they want to be just like our trashy, sleazy culture. But the hate, I think most of Americans after the election, I myself included, were completely shocked. I had gone to bed before the total results of the election were in, and I was shocked to see that Bing search engine reported 89% favor a Hillary win. And well into the election, it continued to say that, even though state by state, one by one, Hillary lost. I woke up the next morning expecting the hammer to be dropped on American culture as we know it, and American free thought as we know it. I was shocked to see that Hillary Clinton was shown the door. I was going, how did this happen? Because unbeknownst to the arrogance and the cockiness of the Democrats that yelled, Donald Trump will not win. Even Obama said, at least I was president. Ha, ha, ha. One of those clowns came back and said, wow, we were wrong. Instead, they wasted no time in going to work to saying that the Russians colluded with Trump to seize control of the election, and there was voter fraud because Russians are fully capable of controlling every single independent voter machine and ballot box around the country. They have still found nothing of the sort. That we saw the worst case of soreloserism.com after that election, and the beat goes on. No, social media is not your friend. No, the major networks are not your friend. That Americans get all caught up in Emmys, Grammys, and Oscars, and to that I say, who cares? The unsung heroes of modern working day Americans that try to do what is right, that go to their job, that serve in less than stellar pay, with bosses with attitudes, and Americans that get up every day and try to do the right thing are never ever talked about. But instead, we got to hear about the latest movie star and their latest failed marriage. I love Don Henley's song. Some people make their living off the evening news. Just give me something that you can use. People love it when you lose. They love dirty laundry. Kick them when they're up, kick them when they're down, kick them when they're up, kick them all around. It's true. Don Henley wrote that in the 80s. Most of the rock stars were potheads, druggies, and yet ironically, Jim Morrison, Don Henley, and a host of others were singing about our culture. Jim Morrison, who sang, "When you're strange, people remember your name. When you're strange." Jim Morrison grew up a lonely man. Father in the military that moved constantly. He could never get close friendships. And it's easy to point at these people and say, oh, yeah, they were druggies and they died of a drug overdose. And we say that so cavalier. But how much do we as a society reach out and actually care for people? Don't think the church is immune from the liberal left. Every church I know, as seen on Facebook, like us on Facebook, that the church is always one step behind society. They don't want to be left behind. And increasingly, the church is being left behind. And the sad thing is the church is being destroyed, in most cases, by its own professing Christian populace, who is so in love with our entertainment culture that now our churches went from singing the grand old hymns to having electric guitars and loud, obnoxious, adrenaline-inducing music that gets you agitated and doesn't still and calm your soul to be a person of peace. The argument goes that we got to update our music. That even antagonists of Christianity are starting to shake their head and say, what are they doing over there in that church? Why are they copying the ways of the very society that they used to preach against? Truth is in short supply. Fake news is in abundance. People care more about being liked and don't want rejection. But let me tell you, in all the years of my life, it finally became crystal clear that more of the hate, and I get that. There's Christians that have hated, there's conservatives that have hated. But take a look around and ask yourself this one. If the left is so open-minded and tolerant, why is it they're the ones that bully and intimidate and harass online anybody that has an opposing viewpoint to theirs? Many of you will remember I had a 2-hour conversation with this Andrew Drescher who hacked into my account, got the phone number. Maybe not even hacked, just saw it. I still have a recording of that phone conversation where when he posted it on his then YouTube channel, he basically said Pacific and I had become friends. How misleading. The guy had mental issues, to be sure. And what really rubbed me the wrong way is he was in the United States military, lying through his teeth, being a financier in Hong Kong, wearing dollar store sunglasses and hiding his face, never posting his public address, anything. And that's the Democrats in general. You won't get the truth out of them. They want to smear and attack, and they want to scream and yell and bully people that have a view different than theirs. And after 2 hours of wrangling with this guy, Pacific himself not showing himself with great composure in any of this conversation, the end of the conversation boiled down to, I don't like you talking about God. Many people who had differing views than I did on the matters of faith, religion, and God said, I love your videos. Will you leave God out of it? Sorry to those of you that tune in. I cannot. God is a belief that I have. And to exclude that so that I can get the most number of likes is not being true to myself. That Pacific has his own problems, that Pacific is far from perfect, is without question. I am simply another voice in a sea of many. Nobody has the right, by God or by law, to harass or intimidate people of an opposing viewpoint. We do have the right to discourse. We have the right to air. We have the right to publicly broadcast our views. And the left is trying to shut that down. If you have a dissenting view of the left, they want to strip you of your freedom. I'm reading a book right now. I would recommend it to every one of my readers if you can get your hands on it. It's the story of Louis Zamperini. Young man, 20s, 30s, he was drafted in World War II. Plane blew an engine. He and the pilot and several others went down. He survived 47 days drifting across the Pacific 2,000 miles, landing on an island only to get captured by the Japanese. We live in a world today that is devoid of facts. That the old saying, those that do not learn from history are bound to repeat it, is absolutely truth. We have a young generation today screaming and yelling that we dropped the atom bomb on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. I promise you, when you get done reading with this book, you will know that it was completely justified. As a POW, these men were abused, starved, deprived, kicked, beaten, tormented, tortured, so much so that the prisoner of war guard camps, that the one guy named Watanabe got off on beating Americans and Aussies and British Allied forces that were captured, taking a pocket knife and cutting off one by one men's fingernails, baseball batting them to the head. America treated their POWs way better than we were treated in other places. If the left were allowed to succeed, I promise you, we would see that kind of violence, that kind of cruelty to those of us that have a dissenting view. Socialism is a cloak for dominance. It is a cloak for communistic takeover. It is a cloak for censoring and stripping Americans of their constitutional rights. It is intolerant of true biblical faith. It is intolerant of men being men. In fact, feminism is extremely intolerant of a man being who he is. They want to redefine and retool men to be meek and submissive and to be ladylike. That there's more acceptance given transsexuals, cross-dressers, and gay people than there is a guy like me who boldly states his mind. No, folks. The hate is so self-evident from the left. You can do what you want. You can get on Facebook. You can get on social media. My recommendations after years of slow understanding: get off of it. Live your life before you get censored and shut down. When our education system has been hijacked by the liberal thought police, when our education system is showing more kind, compassionate infomercials of Ramadan and Kwanzaa and Muslim holidays, but lambasting a student for carrying his Bible to school and sitting around with his friends at recess and talking about the Bible, and they get in trouble for that, something is wrong. When American education, all the way at the university level, forces you to take classes that have nothing to do with your degree or pursuit of your interest whatsoever. Humanities, Freudian psychology, pushing beliefs that we don't hold to be self-evident, like evolution, socialism, the women's studies that are a mandate for most public school teachers, which are in fact extremely anti-male, extremely pro-lesbian, and extremely godless. When it finally dawns on Americans that every big establishment has been overrun by liberals, when you look at Cal Berkeley and you look at universities and you look at the number of conservatives and Republican thinking people on staff as faculty, teachers, whatever, on these, they're not there. And you actually believe you're going to get objective truth. And people wrongly assume when they have a degree, they get their inflated egos going, look what I got. Congratulations. You got manipulated, brainwashed by the system. It is a known fact that Christian children raised in Christian homes, that many of them go to a secular university or college and they reject the faith. An antagonist would argue and say, see, because they get exposed to the truth. No, they didn't. It is self-evident that the hate, that the threats, that the cyberbullying rarely originates from a conservative, but more so from the liberal. During Barack Obama's 8 years of complete incompetence in being the helm of a great United States, I didn't hear any public Republican conservative figure stand up and say, I feel like blowing up the White House. I didn't hear it. The vaginal discharge that took place over the election of Trump is continuing to this day. The hatred, the anger, the wrath. So much so that even establishment Republicans can't stand him, because Trump looked him right in the eye and he did not play political correctness at all. He called a spade a spade. When I went into my current place of employment the day after the election, I walked in smiling. One of my coworkers said, what are you so happy about? And before I could say a word, I actually said, I'm just in a good mood today. Oh, yeah, that's right. You voted for Trump and he won. I said, yes, he did, and I'm happy. I don't think I need to tell my viewers the whole room gave me a filthy look, and comments were hurled in my direction. This is not a good day. I said, oh, yes, it is. When the Hispanics and the minorities are yelling and screaming about how racist we are, even though those people leave Mexico because of the corruption, because of the low income, they come over here to dwell in a white land because they admit it's better for them. And white people, us racist white people, let them come in. The hypocrisy of the left goes unabated. It is like Hurricane Irma, 218-mile-an-hour winds destroying everything in its path with no sign of slowing down. No, the left is hating. The left is bullying. The left is name-calling. The left is trying to strip us of our rights. You listen to Fox News, it is amazing what they come out with. And the left just continues to lie. CNN's ratings dropped. Anybody remember Kaepernick and the whole football fiasco with politics now being rammed into football games? Never should have happened. And is Kaepernick actually doing anything to stop police brutality? No. These people stand up and make their little stand, rally people together to fling more hate, and the actual number of injustices of cops against other people are very low compared to the fact that the people from these groups complaining about racism and discrimination are actually the ones bringing all of the problems when it comes to not submitting to law enforcement officers and doing reprehensible things, and no one from within their own community stands up and decries Michael Brown's ridiculous, unlawful behavior, and a grand jury consisting of blacks and other ethnicities found Officer Wilson not guilty, but following exact protocol. But that was not the answer that the African American community in Ferguson, Missouri wanted to hear. This is what happens with the liberal left. First, you attack the belief in God. Then you attack any absolutes except the absolutes you want to hold dear. Situational ethics is at the helm of the liberal left. Let's speak out against authority. Let's scream and yell about our police. Let's now show complete disrespect for our sitting president. Even though anybody stood up and said, I do not believe in Barack Obama, you were called a racist. That if Martin Luther King were alive today, he would boldly say, as he said in his speech way back when, that a man be judged not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. That even Martin Luther objectively would say that Barack Obama was not voted in for the content of his character, but by the color of his skin. America has turned full circle. And it is those left, and it is those cyberbullies, and it is those people that are the thought police and the political correct police censoring everything, and they're teaching our children and brainwashing and manipulating and retooling their minds to be so concerned about environmentalism and global warming and want everybody to drive a Prius and think the way they think. And now we have kids disrespecting authority, using such language that doesn't quit. We have kids today that have not been disciplined or spanked and taught to respect authority. And we got young kids mouthing off if they know everything, and a lot of them aren't getting jobs and sitting under mommy and daddy's paycheck while mouthing off and screaming and yelling at them. Isn't it fun? No, folks. The left, the liberal camp, is causing all this destruction and wreckage and flotsam and jetsam all over the landscape. You have to understand, if you think the Democrats actually care about the plight of blacks and Hispanics, that is only a smokescreen, a pimpage tool to get and obtain more votes for themselves, to give them and ensure that they have their cushy positions. When Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats all voted in Obamacare, not once did anyone say, we need to give this same health care that we have to all Americans. That right there is it, folks. Remember, the Democrats don't do anything that costs them anything. They do anything that takes tax dollars and lines their and pads their wallets, their retirement, their 401ks, their cruises, their fantasy islands, while they kick in the groin American people. And Democrats sit there and think that they're all about social programs. No, they're not. They're about enabling people who are dregs of society to sit on their butt, to have more babies, to smoke more pot, to raise hell in housing projects, make noise, disrupt the peace, rebel the police, and cause nothing but mayhem and wreckage. And these are the people that are against Donald Trump. When I look in my current workplace and I look at the people that screamed and yelled about Trump, they are the people that are called into the office. They are people that do not have perfect attendance. I'm not talking about legitimate sickness, but people that call in just to call in, people that lie and cheat the system, people that are rude to each other, that they turn against their own race. No, I've lived long enough to go, you know what? We hold these truths as self-evident. The Democratic Party, the Facebook Party, the social media party, they're not our friends. They're watching you. They're documenting you. They're tracking you. And they don't like you, conservatives. Welcome back, everybody. Stay tuned for more upcoming from Pacific Ocean Asia.